Chapter 18, Neverseen. Sophie woke with the sunrise and found Keith still asleep by his window, his cheek smashed against the glass. She smiled at how peaceful he looked, no signs of any nightmares. She smiled even wider when she noticed the tiny trail of drool near his lip. "You slept on the floor?" Kala asked from the doorway. Sophie clutched her chest to calm her startled heart. It was for a good cause. She took one last look at sleeping Keith before pulling her drapes closed. "How come you're up so early?" "I'm always awake at this hour. I take my 10 minutes at midday under the warmth of the high noon sun." Sophie couldn't imagine living on so little sleep, but she was more worried about the way Kala was nervously twiddling her green thumbs. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Kala's wide gray eyes met hers. "I need help from the moonlark. There's something I need you to check up for me." A whisper in the forest I do not understand. The words felt colder than the floor as Sophie fumbled to change into pants and a tunic. She was still struggling into her boots as she followed Kala to the waterfall common room. "We should leave a note for the others so they do not wonder where you are," Kala whispered, plucking a dry leaf from the carpet and carving a message with her thumbnail. "Wait, are we leaving aloof there?" Sophie had assumed the forest Kala meant was the trees right outside. Kala handed her the message she'd cut off in frilly lettering. "With Kala in Brackendale. Be home soon. Sophie and Biana." "Biana?" Sophie asked. Kala pointed to the corner. "I assume you're planning to join us." "I am," Biana agreed, appearing in the shadows. "But how did you know I was there?" "Gnomish eyes are not fooled by tricks of light," Kala told her. "Seriously?" Biana asked. "How did I not know that?" "It's not something we think to mention," Kala said. "Elves had no reason to hide from us. Are we ready? The journey ahead is long." "Just let me grab my shoes," Biana said, and Sophie was relieved to see her return from her bedroom in a pair of sturdy walking boots. Kala placed the leaf note on a table and led them down the winding stairs. Biana used the walk to play "How many invisible fingers am I holding up?" and Kala passed every test with flying colors. "Wow, I can't believe you can see me," Biana said, blinking in and out of sight. "Can you teach me how you do it so I can try to find a way around it?" "I suppose we can give it a try." They'd reached the ground by then, and Kala dropped to her knees, pressing her palms against an exposed tree root. She closed her eyes, singing a deep, slow song. The language sounded earthier than gnomish, and Kala seemed to sink straight into the soil. The roots started twisting and twirling and sweeping aside the soil, creating a narrow tunnel that stretched underground. Biana looked at Sophie, her eyes pleading, you first, as Kala motioned for them to follow her into the earth. Sophie had to duck her head as she plodded into the dark tunnel, her eyes barely registering Kala's silhouette up ahead. Biana stayed close, keeping one hand on Sophie's shoulder. After several minutes of stumbling in the dark, Kala told them to hold still. "You need to be secured," Kala said, coiling roots around her feet and waists. "The trees will carry us to Brackendale. All you must do is trust and try not to scream." The not screaming part definitely wasn't reassuring. Neither was the way Kala hummed to make the roots squeezed even tighter. Sweat trickled down Sophie's spine and she reached for Biana's hand. Glad Biana's palm felt as clammy as hers. "Where is Brackendale?" Biana whispered. "The one place I should not take you, but I must. It's in the neutral territories." Sophie couldn't decide which was scarier, knowing she was heading somewhere Counselor Orally had specifically warned her to stay away from, or riding nature's most terrifying three-root roller coaster. Kala sang as they traveled, and the lyrics seemed to spur the roots faster until they were tearing through the earth so fast Sophie could feel her cheeks out like a cartoon character. She did not want to know what things were getting stuck in her teeth. She also had no idea where they were going. The tunnel was pitch black, and every few minutes they would stop and Kala would tangle new roots around them to change direction. Can you travel anywhere like this? Sophie asked. Within limits, deeper parts of the earth can only be reached by ancient root systems, and the ogres uprooted all the pathways into Ravagog unless you believe the legends. Sophie wanted to ask what legend Scala meant, but she could feel the roots pulling them toward the surface. What are we supposed to do when we get to Brackendale? She asked. You will be serving as my eyes and ears. A friend of mine used to live here, but I received word that she had fled. She said the forest felt too anxious, and I need you to find out what that means. How can a forest be anxious? Sophie asked, but Bianna had a much better question. Does that mean you're not coming with us? I do not think it would be wise. The whispers in the roots feel like a warning. They sing of weakness and darkness and some sort of unnatural tampering. The lump in Sophie's throat made it hard to whisper. The plague. It's possible, Kala agreed. That's why I need you. The plague only harms plant life and plant-related things. You and Biana will be able to search the forest safely. Assuming there were no ogres running around infecting the trees. Biana must have shared Sophie's worry because she leaned closer and whispered, I'm guessing you aren't carrying a melder? I wish, but I have my sucker punch and Dex's panic switch, and I can inflict, and you can turn invisible. I also brought you these. Kala pressed a cool, smooth crystal into each of their palms. They'll lead you to a forest in the Forbidden Cities should you need to make a quick getaway. I will find you there and return you to Aloviter. Sophie squeezed the crystal, trying to convince herself it would be enough. All they need is a few seconds and a beam of light, and they'd be far away from any danger. They could do this. The pep talk didn't ease her nerves nearly as much as she wanted, especially when the roots screeched to a stop. Kala hummed a new song, and the soil parted above them, letting light stream into the tunnel, burning their eyes like laser beams. The roots say to follow the sun, Kala whispered. And you don't have any idea what we're looking for? Biana asked. Kala shook her head. But I suspect you'll know it when you see it. I leave the tunnel open so it's easier to find when you return. Sophie nodded, tucking her crystal into her easiest to reach pocket. Biana did the same and latched onto Sophie's hand with a death grip as they climbed the slippery soil wall and emerged into the forest. The scene looked normal enough. Mossy trees, overgrown paths, an abundance of green and brown. But something felt wrong. Sophie tried to tell herself it was only her paranoia, but she still scooted closer to Biana as they shoved through the ferns and bushes. Better wishing you hadn't gotten up to spy on me, huh? Sophie whispered. Actually, I was already awake. Biana twisted her hair into a fancy knot to keep it from blowing into the damp wind. It's hard sleeping in a strange bed. An earth-shaking roar drowned out Sophie's reply. What was that? Sophie glanced over her shoulder, sure she'd spot some sort of hungry beast come to devour them. Biana pointed to a high branch where a black parrot-sized bird watched over them with glittering dark eyes. Don't worry, it's just a boobry. That's seriously its name? Yup, you should hear the jokes Fitz and Keith make. The bird's head was crowned with a yellow feather mohawk, but its most distinct feature was its long curled eyelashes. It looked like it should be doing a mascara commercial as it batted its eyes and let out another roar. That was when Sophie realized what was wrong with the forest. It didn't rustle or crackle or make any of the sounds trees normally made. Other than the roaring boobry, the whole place seemed to be holding its breath. Come on, Sophie said, checking the sky to make sure they were heading in the right direction. We shouldn't spend too much time here. They doubled their pace, chasing the sun as it curved across the horizon. Sophie tried to make a mental note of each place. They were rooted around rocks, or streams, or overgrown patches, but she wished she had something to mark the trail. How much farther do you think we should walk? Biana whispered when they stopped to catch their breath. How about we count 1 to 1,000? If we still haven't found anything, we double back on a different path. They counted every footfall, and at step 710, they curved around another rocky outcropping and froze. What is that? Sophie breathed, pointing ahead to a small, thicket where one of the trees was shrouded under a dome of pure white light. It looks like some sort of force field, Bianna whispered. Sophie grabbed a small stone and flung it at the tree. As soon as it touched the force field, white lightning flashed, and the stone ricocheted toward her head at 10 times the speed. She barely managed to duck before it streaked past, embedding in a nearby trunk. I don't get it, Bianna whispered, pulling Sophie behind the rocks to hide. Why would anyone shield a tree? Sophie had a theory, and it wasn't good news. I need to get a closer look. Bianna grabbed her wrist to stop her. Do you think it's safe? If someone's around, don't you think they would have checked after all that lightning? True, Bianna reluctantly. I don't like this, she mumbled. Something feels wrong. Indeed it did, but not far for the reason Bianna problem meant. But not for the reason Bianna problem meant, sorry. Sophie had expected the shielded tree to show some sign of the plague, but it looked perfectly healthy. In fact, its leaves were a brighter green than the other trees around it, and the bark almost had a sheen. She squatted and grabbed a handful of fallen sticks, holding them up to see if the dried leaves matched. What are you doing? Sorry, Bianna asked, trying to see if any of these are from the same tree, though it might be better to dig up a root. That way we can bring a sample back to Aluviter and test if this tree is infected. But if the tree is infected, you'd be exposing Kala and Sior and Amici to the plague. Sophie dropped the stick, but she'd already touched it. Were her hands contaminated? Maybe I should leap away and you can tell Kala to send someone else to get me, someone with a lot of disinfectant. I don't know if it's a good idea to split up, Bianna said. Isn't that better than putting Kala at risk? Of course, Bianna said, though she didn't look happy about it. But we could still walk back at least part of the way together. I shouldn't go more than halfway though, just to be safe. They'd only taken a few steps when a flash of light drew their attention. A black-cloaked figure appeared a few feet away, his sleeve bearing the unmistakable white eye symbol of the Neverseen.